All right, good afternoon. Looks like we've got a few people on today. I know we're on a weekend and a Sunday, and tomorrow's a bit of a holiday for some of you for Juneteenth and also Father's Day. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about how to get low-income housing and how to get Section 8 housing. But it's less about me talking and more about you guys asking questions. So, a few introductions. I am the owner of Section8Consulting.com. I've been working with clients for around 21 years. Uh, I usually handle around 700 to 1,000 cases a year with individuals, anywhere from 30 or 40 landlords all the way up to 200 a year. And we try to navigate the system, have a better understanding by talking to you guys about policies, procedures, the best way to get vouchers, where to go, what to do. So today, a few things I want to tell you. We probably have reached the worst point of this housing situation in the nation. Hi, Rainy Big. And by the way, this is a live video. So if you happen to be here at approximately 5 p.m. Texas time on 6/19, the video will be live for a little bit. So, it takes many different factors to make the situation for housing difficult. And then it takes many more to make it extremely difficult. And right now, we have one of the perfect storms I had mentioned in one of my prior videos. You have a pandemic, you have a housing shortage, you have a housing bubble, you have rents being raised 10, 20, 30, and 40%. You know, you got inflation, you got a looming recession, and we're also fighting a war. If anything else happens in this nation, I suppose it's going to break. Uh, these factors do directly affect our government, getting housing and vouchers. Anytime that a market starts to destabilize like this, when everybody goes and floods the market, buys up all the houses, it makes it harder for people to get vouchers and use them. That being said, a few things I'm going to cover today will be some of the changes we're making for Section8Consultant.com. And I'll wait on you guys. And again, this is a live video. If you're on a TV, tablet, a phone, whatever it may be, you can ask whatever questions you may wish. Please don't ask overly complicated questions that will require a half-hour conversation. So I'm going to give you all some updates, both personal and some that are not so personal. That way we can talk about a bit of business while I wait for you guys to ask your questions. So as y'all know, a big part of my channel is about cats. I introduced them in some of my earlier videos years ago, and I didn't realize they were such a one-hit wonder. And so I've incorporated a lot of my kitty cats. I rescue them. So I don't just house people, I also rescue abandoned and abused animals, and I quite enjoy that. And often y'all get to see them in the videos. As an example, today we had a live video for 4 hours of some kittens. One of my girls was pregnant, and she had three babies, and they were comfortable. No excessive lighting or annoying the kittens. Just an opportunity for different people to view it. Okay. All right. Looks like we got a few people pop. Redmond, how are you today? But Redmond goes on to say, I have a voucher in an apartment. I like question thoughts on and considerations for me related to upcoming and annual the recertification. Well, so you have a voucher and you're up for recertification. Well, usually the best way to handle recertifications is don't change anything. And when you start changing things, it makes them reevaluate your case. So especially when they see the additional family members, and if you start to come into more additional money, it may change the outcome of what the value of the voucher is worth. It may also stimulate them to investigate accommodations and other things you may have. So just to answer that. So again, guys, if you have questions, go ahead and ask. Heather Montero says, "Happy Sunday, happy Sunday, you too." Now, one thing I'm going to tell you guys is, as most of you know, as a company, we do consulting work for clients. I'm only bringing this up just to let you know. Because of inflation, I have decided as a company to do something that other companies don't do. We are not going to raise our prices. We're actually going to reduce them because what I'm selling is my time. And so I have reduced, as of today, about an hour ago, I've reduced the prices on virtually everything that we offer, from a simple phone call that lasts 20 minutes to casework. I've reduced it by 40%. Okay, we haven't had prices like that since it's been years, way before the pandemic. Okay, now whether or not y'all feel that you need to utilize that or want that, do so. If not, you don't have to. I'm not here to sell you anything. All right, so let's a few more questions here. One more thing before I move on to the next thing about housing. A lot of companies, they see inflation and greed sets in, and so they tend to charge higher and higher amounts. And so I figure the best way to help people right now is to drive costs as low as I can for those of you that are insufferably unable to get housing and need the extra help. Okay. Trend Trader, good afternoon. How are you? Check the homeless and disabled boxes and app was accepted in 10 minutes. Thanks, Jay. No problem, Trend Trader. I'm glad to hear that. So, one of the things I mentioned about applications from housing authorities and subsidized properties, let's discuss some of the things in principle that are strongly considered. Let's talk about the top three things real quick, and I'm going to answer a few more questions. Number one, a person that could potentially be homeless or is homeless. Number two, a person that has suffered domestic violence. Let's talk about DV real quick. That way, we don't have an old idea of that from the 50s and 60s. DV or domestic violence can be considered as a person that is mentally causing you harm, that is physically causing you harm, a person that you can't shake loose. It doesn't need to be current. So we often say the word stalking, but it can also be a relationship where they keep reappearing. You're at the grocery store and there's Bob or Sally again. And then there's implied threats. For those of you that are out there on a low income, you've got this former roommate, but every time that you get your Social Security payment, they seem to want a piece of that, or they imply a threat against you if you don't give them $40 of your food stamp card. You see my point? So there's many considerations to this to be for domestic violence. It does not have to be a situation where you're in the ICU. Okay. All right, moving on from that, I'm gonna answer a few more questions. Devin Bankston, if I don't live in the county, can you use a PO box for an address to get a Section 8 voucher in that county? Well, PO boxes are an old method. So let's talk about what the housing authority will accept and what they may find a little bit shady. Many of you may not even know this, but UPS for a small p will give you a real street address. It's the same thing as the PO box without the word PO. They call them real street addresses. Why do they do that? Because a lot of people are on fixed income, receive checks, and where do you think all these homeless people get their mail? Homeless people also receive payments. And so utilizing a real street address is indistinguishable. In other words, unless the housing authority is really going to go through a ridiculous amount of trouble to look it up, you can, and also these real street addresses can be purchased anywhere in the U.S. from the comfort of your phone or your computer, okay? You don't actually have to travel there. In most cases, you're now able to upload things like your driver's license and ID. Doesn't matter. So I'd like for you guys that are looking into addresses in that conflict, type in Google real street address. All right, moving on. Rainy baby, I hope you are real, Jay. Haha. Well, I am as real as they come. If anybody's questioning the whether or not I'm a mannequin or I have a fan, whether or not I'm a mannequin, then I don't know what to tell you. Heather Montana says, I am disabled trying to get Section 8 in South Florida. Florida is an exceptionally tough state, so is California, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Nevada, and New Mexico. There are certain states that are white hot, not red hot, white hot. And so I got to tell you, those are tough states to deal with. Yeah. Mr. Heather goes on to say it is really hard here. Yes, I know. I know that because I have a lot of folks out in Florida. I have a lot of clients in Florida. JW, emergency voucher help for domestic violence. Well, I think that your focus should be more on the emergency than it is the domestic. Now, domestic violence does something very curious. If you don't know this, I want you to type in your Google search when you get a chance, or just make a small note or memory right now. I want you to type in the words VAWA, okay? It's a Domestic Violence Against Women's Act, but it doesn't have to be a woman. But the point is, if you utilize, I hate when I draw a blank. If you utilize domestic issues in your case, it does something very compelling under federal law. It forces housing authorities and other programs to consider your application more imminent. In other words, twice as quick as an ordinary person. Okay. Some things you can claim on an application do very magical things that most of you are not aware of. You could say, oh, I'm 99, I'm a senior, and I'm disabled. So is everybody else. But there are certain things you can say in an application that have a lot of power to move you and also move you up a list. Okay. So I would suggest that you look into that a little bit. Boy, these comments are rolling quick now. Dorothy M. As a landlord, how can I see what benefits I can get by putting my house on Section 8 again? Well, Dorothy, the first thing that you really want to explore. So, if you have a home, talking to your housing authority to see the FMRs or fair market rates by HUD, and also contacting your housing authority to see what their FMR is. If you know what the fair market rates are and you think that those prices are good and you can accept a voucher for that amount, there's a second thing that most landlords are unaware of, and it's called, boy, I'm on a tear today of drawing blanks. Incentives. Okay, there we go. So incentives. So sometimes when you become a landlord, housing authorities will offer you an incentive between, I don't know, $500 and $5,000. So a new tenant comes over with a voucher and gives you a request for tenancy. They sign a minimum 12 months lease. The housing authority may issue a direct payment to your bank account within 90 days for amounts around $500 to $5,000. It's called a lease-up bonus. They don't publish these things because they prefer nobody to know. You just walk in, you don't know about the sale, and they just kind of get away with it. But if you're good or you have a good consultant working with you, there's probably about 20 different 20 different incentives you could go after, and also additional grants. I'm having a rough time today. I'm sorry, guys. JW, hello. What would be my best way to get an emergency voucher help for domestic? Okay. So back to that, JW. The best way would be probably contacting the continuum of care for your state, which is coordinated entry. It's often administered through 211 or 311. In a perfect world, you'd probably want to get with somebody like me that can help you navigate through that system quicker. But that would be the best way. Also, you have a national domestic violence phone line you can call. But all the stuff you got to go through to get to the meat of the situation for housing is pretty straining. Joel, how are you this afternoon? And he goes on to say, after receiving a notice from the PHA, the voucher application has been selected for the top of the waiting list, then completing the intake certification and submitting the request. Joel goes on to say, application income documentation, what is generally expected in the rest of the voucher process? Well, Joe, if you cleared all those things and they've notified you and you're doing the recertification, it usually means you're within 30 days of receipt of potentially getting that voucher. Sometimes it goes a little longer depending on the state you're in. So I would say that if you've been recertified, you're all you're doing now is waiting on a phone call, email, or a letter in the mail, and then that's game and match. You're going to be out there looking for a home pretty soon. Okay. Devin Bankston, what about a virtual address? Well, anything that doesn't have P.O. box on the end of it would probably work, including virtual addresses and so on. However, virtual addresses have been around a long time, 20 years now, and the housing authority may be wise of that a little bit. So I'm still recommending real street addresses through UPS that sells them. JW goes on to say, I also want to move from Maryland to Atlanta with my emergency DV voucher. I'm 57 disabled. Well, JW, when you say emergency voucher, I don't know the particular type you have. As many of you may know, there are a wide range of vouchers or how they're funded. It can be funded by subsection 811, section 8, section 504. There's all kinds of entitles, acts, and regulations that can be funded in that voucher. And I don't know if it's a subsidy with the continuum of care. But in that situation, which you're speaking about, JW, if you're wanting to port, it's called portability and moves. And you would want to contact your portability specialist or your caseworker in charge of your case and you would initiate the portability process. That is where they send an RTF8 packet and call the forwarding housing authority where you want to go, and then that housing authority would let you know whether or not they're billing or absorbing. The billing and absorbing process is simply this: if you're in New York and you're going down to Florida, then the folks in Florida have two options. They can send the bill to the state of New York, and then New York can put the bill for you to be in a whole nother state, or they can absorb. And that's when Florida says to New York, all right, go ahead and get rid of Joel's voucher. We're going to issue him one under our taxpayer dollars here in the state of Florida, billing and absorbing. All right, I'm going to take a sip, guys. Y'all asking a question every second here. And no, I'm not sponsoring Monster, okay? It's what fat people drink when they need energy. All right. Teresa Dickey, I have a housing voucher. Are those okay for senior apartment complex, or I need special ones? Well, if you have a voucher, then you would want to, well, it's a landlord that wants to accept it. I would recommend, Teresa, that I give you a link of a list that are pre-approved by the United States government. That way, you can be sure that you're not going to call 1,000 places, and then a lot of them may not even want your voucher. So let me get that list for you real quick. And I'm going to paste that in this live chat for you, Teresa. And here it comes. Use that. That'll help you kind of shorten your list. Look, if you're roaming around YouTube and other places, around 90% of them aren't going to take a voucher. So you want to shorten your misery with looking. I would probably use that website there because most of the landlords are already pre-approved. Monica, is it possible to rent a one-bedroom apartment if you have a two-bedroom voucher? I get asked that a lot. The deal with the number of bedrooms is not as important as you might imagine. I've seen people with a one-bedroom voucher and a desperate landlord that just needed money, and she leased out a whole three-bedroom house. And I've seen it in reverse. As long as your housing specialist is okay with it, there shouldn't be a problem. Again, the housing authority is issuing a voucher. Now, if you get a new caseworker, they may not be savvy to that. Sometimes the new caseworkers are less flexible, and they, might smack your hand and say no. But a lot of housing authorities understand this is a tough market, and if the landlord's willing to accept the payment, it generally doesn't matter. Monica goes on to say, I'm being told I can't, and they are now going to lower my voucher to a one bedroom. Well, Monica, the best way to handle housing authority giving you grief, if you don't want to fight them at the federal level, then initiate the portability process and then move the next county over. In other words, drive your car 15 minutes over the county line and then port that voucher to the next housing authority, and then that will relinquish their control and making you miserable. I've ported a lot of people out of counties to another county, and then they drive the 15 minutes over the county line. Point is, if you got bad workers there, and you don't want to spend an awful amount of time fighting that, then just port the voucher out of their control. All right, so let's go over some updates real quick. I think we talked about the kitties and the pregnant cat I had. As I always say, guys, I always inject a little bit of my personal life because talking about housing is an honest topic some days. So most of you also know I own the Houston Rock Shop. Will be opening in June. The website will be back up. Many of you that have been members of my channel for a long time are well aware of that channel as well. And I'll bring up more details. Just a brief description about that. Gems, minerals, geodes, and all. I know it's not what people hear in this channel, but for those of you that are curious things, crystals, gems, and minerals, and all that, interesting, then I'll really have some more information about that later. Again, I want to reiterate that our company prices for the consulting work we do with clients and tenants that are trying to navigate the system easier. We dropped the prices 40% today, and we'll continue to keep the prices down 40% while we go through the absurdity. And what am I talking about? Let me recap on that as well. We have a pandemic. We have a housing shortage. We have a housing bubble. We have absurd inflation. We have a looming recession, and we're fighting a war. There's not many more ways the country can probably come and fall apart. All these things at once. And I got to tell you, the prices are getting nasty out there. So rather than do what everybody else is doing, raise the prices, I've lowered them, okay? In other words, I'm really just giving away a lot of my time, but that's okay. If it means helping people get through one of the worst summers on the books for getting housing, then that's probably what needs to be done. Let's see, anything else I'm missing here? All right, so back on to questions. JW, I'm sorry, I was speaking hypothetically as if I had been approved for a DV voucher. I'm going to book a session, Jay. Get it while it's cheap, brother. Get it while it's cheap. That's what I tell people, man. We haven't had these kind of prices in a long time, so. And besides that, I mean, for a couple $100, you get me to work for you for 4 months. Pretty amazing deal. And of course, we offer a plethora of other things. Pamela Foster, hey Jay, long time no chat. Pamela in Los Angeles recently ported into here. I'm in a nice place finally. How do you obtain funding to attach to the voucher to get all entitled to her disability? Okay, so that big long sentence you made there, that all comes down to accommodations. So accommodations are granted on and in respect to mental dysfunctions, mental illness, and physical disabilities. And also, as you mentioned, you're in the state of California, and California does consider your living room an additional bedroom. It is rather shady to do that. It's one of the more clever states, so it really does depend, Ms. Foster. I'd have to probably ask you a lot more questions. Accommodations are tough to get because they have to be reasonable, and if the request is unreasonable and costs undue administration or financial burden, then the housing authority as well as the landlord may not choose to venture doing that. And would that change actually truly change the quality of life? And I don't mean by quality of life, meaning that 1 minute you're pissed off because you didn't get it, and the other minute you're happy because you got it. Quality of life issues should affect bodily functions and other issues that are required for daily living. In order to understand that thing, I would suggest watching one of the videos I made about, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. Speaks about accommodations. It's a complex game. It's almost like a law book. So you have to first read it all. And that's the only way you're going to be able to reverse engineer that and figure out what's acceptable and what's not. What you don't want to do about with accommodations is go get on the phone, call them, tip your hand, and then they can reject you instantly. You really want to be full of knowledge before you do this, because after that, it's kind of like the wolf, crying, like the sheep crying wolf, So you really want to be apprised of all your rights before you go talk to these people, because their job is just like an insurance company: deny, deny, deny. Is a voucher actually paper or digital? Well, it depends. If you're in a one horse town, they do still have some paper vouchers, but most housing authorities now give you some paperwork, or you go out and you find a landlord that is already a Section 8 landlord, and then the housing authority will contact them and complete the rest. So I would say that its vouchers are non-existent as a physical object anymore. Matter of fact, when you're approved for most housing authorities to utilize a voucher or a subsidy, they tell you go to the landlord, do your normal application, and make sure they agree to Section 8, and then we'll be in touch with them, and we'll give them a request for tenancy, and so the housing authority will work with the landlord, because the landlord has to enter into a HAP contract along with you. So the old days of carrying around a colorful food stamp book or a big old whopping voucher is no longer necessary to do that, just as long as you know the landlord's going to take it. Pamela Foster goes on to say, when I made a statement was meaning funding to lower expenses as much as possible. Not quite sure what you mean, Miss Foster. Queen Joe, hey, welcome back to the channel. How are you today? Good afternoon. So this is a live video for those of you that have questions about Section 8 housing, low-income housing, subsidized housing, affordable housing. Wait for the questions to roll through. And I think we are done with updates. So I'm going to go ahead and post some information in regards to our company and so on while we're waiting. All right, so wait in live chat. Now you have contact information for our company and things that we offer. All right, guys. So one of the better ways, I believe, for most people to approach housing at this point with the serious nature of what's going on in the country would be contacting as many housing authorities as you possibly can in your state. Um, some are short, some are long. Some are lotteries, some are not lotteries. It's a complex game, really, dealing with it. There's not a lot of great information out there on Google. The free resources that are available are not so good. Well, you have HUD specialists. Those guys will give you a few minutes at a time. Call the housing authority, but they may or may not answer. And of course, you have 211. Those people don't know anything, but they're happy to give you a bunch of phone numbers that may or may not work. There's not a lot of great options. Google is filled with articles that were written over a decade ago that are relevant, and YouTube is filled with a bunch of people that talk on this particular topic but really don't know anything. They actually go to Google, they read it up, and then they make a video like they know. They're not a consultant. They don't have any background. They don't read policy, procedure, legislation, any of it. And so you're getting tips and tricks for people that are one day a party clown at a child's birthday party. The next day they're an expert at fidget spinners. And then the week after, they've invented something new. They're an expert every time they make a video. This is what I do, and I've done so for 10 years on YouTube as well as our website. Dripping Wolf, I am AIDS patient. How do I access? Well, actually, you got your acronym is wrong there. So HOPWA, so HOPWA, which is also under the Ryan White program. You want to access that funding. You can access it through the housing authority by asking them about your status. Also, the second is going to be through the continuum of care. Or you could get sub funding from Wine Right, which also is in cooperation of that. It's not an easy path, but the nice thing about HOPA is it's has a lot of funding, but very few participants. So I think I made a video about that. If I haven't, I'm going to. So, all right. Anybody else got questions? I'm going to give you some manuals today while we're in this video. These are to help you, and this is a tool. It's a tool to learn. If you have the manuals the housing authority has, it means that if things go bad, you can weaponize your case. How do you weaponize a case? Well, first of all, don't ever be in servitude to a housing authority or people that talk shit to you. And that's the case you're going to deal with a lot when you deal with housing authorities. Angry, overworked employees that don't give a damn. So the best way to deal with it is to weaponize your case and understand federal regulations, federal code, Title 24, public housing code, and all that. That way, when you have a problem, Sally Ding Dongs that works at the housing authority can't just talk to you any old way. It means that you're apprised of your rights and you understand how to navigate the system properly. Now, and I always mention in all my videos, if you've called the housing authority and they invited you over for a prayer circle, they came over and brought you a cake and were worried about you, then I would be stunned. Most housing authority are filled with bitter people. However, lots of them are still good. But I think we all had some pretty bad experiences with housing authority and their employees. I always warn clients about that. And that's if you actually do reach them. A lot of them are closed, don't answer the phone. You send out an email, might be a month later they respond, and then you get a canned response, just about enough to make you say a few profanities. That's the experience of about 70-80% of housing authorities. Teresa Dickey says, thank you, dear. JW, can you already own a home and still get emergency voucher? No, you cannot. Yeah, that doesn't even sound right, JW. If you own a home, man, yeah, they're not going to give you a voucher. So, all right. Looks like it's pretty quiet. Okay, well, our next video is going to be on Tuesday afternoon, and I haven't decided what we're going to talk about. Also, I'm going to bring in some of the cats for those of you pet lovers. If you hang around my channel and the 600 plus videos I've made, one thing you learn real fast is I love pets. I love the rescue, and they're a big part of the video. Sometimes they're not. So if you like that, stay. If you don't, like I said, there's always that other lady or gentleman on YouTube that's an expert at fidget spinners, and she works as a party clown in the mornings. And then today she's a master expert PhD consultant. There's a lot of fakes and frauds on YouTube, so much so that it almost makes me tear up. We get new ones every day, making videos about nonsense. Queen Joe S. with a Section 8 voucher. Well, you got to, Queen Joe, you didn't ask the whole question there. You just said Section 8 voucher. Waiting on you, Queen Joe. Dorothy M. Any special incentives as a landlord for handicapped Section 8 tenants offered? Well, yes. Building improvements, tax incentives. They could go as far as fixing and buying new air conditioning units, renovations. As a landlord, also, they can give you insurance to cover any damage that ever happens. There's a number of different things. Unfortunately, I would have to go to a rather long video. Maybe I should make a landlord video about specifically incentives, and that way I can kind of address that for you landlords out there that are still struggling to figure out beyond just getting a voucher payment what else you get out of it. So I think that's what I'm going to address this week. Teresa Dickey, Jay, sorry, please clarify for me if the manager says she'll take my voucher to her senior apartment, then they will work. Okay, let me reread that question. The manager says she will take the voucher. Well, yeah, if she accepts the voucher, then that's fine. Then that's it. It's a request for tenancy and then approved. Rainy Baby, I want to order a mix and match. Love you. Rainy Baby, what in the world could you possibly order from my company that we can mix and match? I don't give out a free kitten with every visit, but shoot me an email. Look, guys, I don't post our company's phone number chats because if most of you hang around long enough, you'll see from Russia and China selling Barbie dolls, sex toys, and other crazy stuff in my channel. I had to block them about 13 times earlier today in a live video. They're nuts. So if you put your number there, my phone will melt from scams and spam. So, guys, if you follow the links to our website and booking software, if you look, take a moment, look carefully, you'll see a phone number. You'll also see an email, but I'm never going to publish that in YouTube. That's asking for pain. I am never going to publish that in this YouTube. Rainy Baby says, I'm ordering something. Okay. Get to it, Rainy Baby, so we can talk. Joel, special incentives to landlords with disabilities, handicapped tenants. Very cool. Thank you, Dorothy, for asking that question. Well, Joel and the other, we're going to make a video about incentives. How about that, guys? I'm going to do that. That'll just be a sidekick video. I'll keep it brief, and I'll cover all the different types of incentives you can address the housing authority with. You want to meet with their executive level people there, and they're going to be a little bit stunned when they realize how much you know. Because I like to teach, and it's one of those things, it's like a discount. It's hidden under the desk. Everybody else is paying, getting the main stuff, just the payment for rent, but there's a lot of things available, but it's not the job. It's not the housing authority's job to teach you. That's the thing. So insider information to get them to deeply discount, increase rent, give you other incentives. You got to go in knowing it all ahead of time, or you just don't get it. So, Rainy Baby, the mug. Oh, okay. You're ordering mugs. All right. Well, I have a few of them myself, in fact. Now, let's be honest, folks. I know these coffee cups are a fabulous purchase, right? I put my logo on it. It's a cat line. They're a little bit overpriced, but that's not my pricing. The company that makes them, I'm sure they buy these. They buy a whole ship from China, and they buy these for a penny a piece, and then they sell them to us for absurd amounts of money. And then after they've taken their 99% cut, they will send me 1 copper penny for buying that coffee mug. I bought 2. I supported the people in China and Russia that are making coffee cups for a penny a day. We all know that game, man. Them coffee cups ain't worth a damn. But these actually are good coffee cups, and it does support the channel. But let's just be honest. That's not my pricing. That's the company that makes them. So Better to hear the truth than not. But I ordered them because I wanted them. So, and you know what? These are mine's about 2 years old. Good Redmond says also love pussy. Good Redmond. Now you know you shouldn't use that word in YouTube. You said that you love cats, but the landlord only allows small dogs. I'm not. This is not getting more common. Well, what is getting more common is people get more clever. You know, people go to their doctor, they have a sneeze, they have a little wheeze because of allergies, and now they need a emotional support cat. So a lot of my clients have figured out if they go tattled to the doctor, they can get an emotional support pet, sometimes up to 20 of them. And then they, under federal law, the landlord can't tell you can't have the cat or the dog or the bird, or the lizard, the pig, the chicken, whatever it is that you need to keep you company. So that's the people figured out the little loophole there. If you've got a little, you need that emotional support, then the landlord simply cannot deny that. Yeah, it's rough, but hey, look, there's a loophole in every game, and you can figure out what they are, then you get what you want. Is it ethical or moral? Well, that's up to you. I'm not telling anybody to run down to the doctor and say they got emotional problems to have additional pets in a property that doesn't accept pets. But under ADA law and the Disability Act, if your doctor so happened to write that note that I suppose you whatever animal you wanted in there, you can have big tarantulas crawling around on the carpet if you want. And the landlord begrudgingly. But you know, the thing about it is you wouldn't want to tell the landlord till you sign the lease because landlords aren't stupid. If they see you coming with 58 boxes of cats, they may not want to lease to you. So that the kitty, you go the day after you lease up. Oh, by the way, I saw a pretty cat at the pet store. My doctor helped me. My doctor says that it's a good emotional pet, and we're going to be adding that to the lease. Now they've got no choice. You show up and want a lease. Oh, by the way, I've got 400 cats. The landlord giggles and she throws your application in the trash. Now, we all know the landlords are not the most, square people you're going to deal with, always. Some are, some are not. And so you have to be clever in how you do it. So here I'm out giving you all bad advice. You have to go back to church, pray for forgiveness after listening to me. So I think that's it. I think we should just wrap it up. I don't really see any other further questions. We're just kind of shooting the shit now. I'm going to do one on incentives and all. And you know what? For those of you that have vouchers, you should listen to the incentive videos because if you're out there and you've got a voucher or you're going to get a voucher, help your landlord get those incentives could mean the difference between you and another voucher holder. So if Miss Sally owns a building and she's looking at 10 different clients that have vouchers and you tune her into those incentives that could boost her bank account, she might be you might be the highest one considered. So look, you got to play every angle with this stuff in a tough economy. And again, a pandemic, a housing shortage, a housing bubble, inflation, a looming recession, and a war. And then, of course, now we have a heat wave. So, it doesn't get much more difficult than that. And plus, during the summer is the toughest time for housing because everybody goes after vouchers and wants to move during the hot months for some reason. So, yeah. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. I've enjoyed having y'all today. And I think tomorrow we'll do a short session. For those of you that missed the kitten video, we'll put it up a shorter duration if y'all like to see our new kittens. Love Bug, one of my newest cats. She had 3 kittens. She was in labor, and I helped her through it. And we have 3 more cats to go with the big herd. And by the way, guys, if you don't know this, I have nearly 20 cats. So, yeah, it's wild, right? Like a zoo. I think it's Chavez. Thank you. Well, thank you, too. Thank you for joining us, Teresa Dickey. One last thing before you go. When do you come again? Well, I tend to be off and off, but you should always expect that I make videos every week. 2 times a day, I'm going to usually make a video. If I do make a video, it will be at around 11 a.m. Texas time. It's important. If you're in California, 10 a.m. is going to be about 8 a.m. If you're in New York, my 10 a.m. is going to be about your 11 a.m. Okay? 6 p.m. Texas time. New York, that would be 5 would be 6. For those on the West Coast, that would be about 3 o'clock. Okay. Now, what days do I typically make videos? I typically always make videos on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. If I do 3, I'm increasing the number because the market's stagnate and less people asking for help. So I'm going to increase the number of videos to help you guys. And oh, by the way, let's get you to those manuals I was talking about. So I want to give you all the new public housing manual, something the housing authority preferably would hope you do not have. Let's see. This will take a minute. Bear with me. This is going to be the 1076 PDF. 230 pages of pure glory. I suggest you guys sit down, read this. That is not an HCB manual, just so you're aware. It's public housing manual. You should read it up. It's important to know these things. And again, they're never going to publish these manuals for the average person to go read them, all right? It's just how it works. People like me go around and have to search every corner, compel them under federal law and everything else to get these manuals. For those that are curious, all manuals, policies, procedures, and everything underwritten for most housing authorities in America is done through NAN, N-A-N, and McKay, M-C-K-A-Y. Okay, there are organizations that create it. If you have their library like I do, then you truly understand it. In other words, I would have the same wisdom and knowledge as every housing authority and its employees around the nation. I don't just read one; I read it from every city. There are thousands of counties, and that means there are thousands of housing authorities. If there are thousands of housing authorities, that means I've got a hell of a library. All right, moving on from that, good red man. So everyone, stay well, and I would definitely take advantage of his awesome rates. Yes, they are rates. I'm gonna close the video with saying, yes, we dropped the prices 40%. That's our give back to the community. And so with inflation, we've decided as a company not to continue to raise prices like the gas station. We decided to lower them immensely. I dropped our prices 40%. This is a limited deal and will remain in place until we kind of get through all the inflation. And what is inflation? Inflation is when rents start going up 10, 20, 30, 40%. When you're paying $5, $6, $7, $8 a gallon of gas, when you can't find an egg or a cracker in the store, that's inflation. It's affecting everything. And it's draining the life out of everybody in this country. And it's especially draining those of you that are seeking housing, wanting housing, paying rent, and so on. Same people lived in the same apartments 30 years, and now the landlords hit them, and they jacked the rent up 40%. This is my final and best offer to people, is to just simply lower company prices. I'm not a wealthy man, and I couldn't be with all these cats, trust me. All right, guys, I hope y'all have enjoyed the video. We'll see you again Tuesday. Bye-bye.